IDF, that battalion, and their ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, which supports Hamas in its war against Israel. Does the U.S. government vouch for the credibility of the Democracy for the Arab World Now organization reports regarding those U.S. sanctions against the Netza Yehuda battalion? And a quick follow-up.
I'm not sure I fully am following your question. What exactly are you asking?
Have you heard of the Democracy for the Arab World Now organization?
I'm not familiar with this organization.
Okay, well, I'll go to the next question here.
Great.
The United States continues to sanction more and more Israelis. Can you describe in detail what is the basis for these sanctions, why there isn't a public hearing so that the American public can see or hear the evidence, and which other allies does the United States currently have sanctions against the citizens and military units?
So generally, public hearings are not part of the process of designating individuals or entities under our system. But let me just be clear, and let's talk about what this is about. This is about violence in the West Bank, violence that we believe to be destabilizing when it comes to our ultimate goal of peace and stability in the region. And that's why you saw the administration take steps last week to designate individuals that we believe to be contributing to that instability through violent extremism. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Vedant. A question on Iran. Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Agency, said in an interview with Deutsche Welle that Iran is weeks rather than months away from having enough enriched uranium to make a nuclear weapon. Well, what's the U.S. assessment on that? Do you have the same belief?
So I don't have any assessment to offer from up here. What I can say is that we sincerely appreciate the IAEA's extensive efforts to engage Iran on longstanding questions relating to Iran's safeguard obligations, and we're going to continue to support Director General Grossi and the IAEA in their efforts. We'll also continue to consult closely with the E3 and other appropriate partners on this, but I'm not going to. Don't have anything.
What about his comments? He says that Iran is weakest, closer to enrich uranium to have the nuclear. Does that concern the U.S. government?
Look, any kind of the president has been very clear that we will go at all lengths to ensure that Iran doesn't obtain a nuclear weapon, but I don't have an assessment to offer on Director General Grossi's comments, but we certainly continue to appreciate his efforts to engage the Iranian regime as it relates to their safeguard obligations.
And one last question, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, this week and after the Iraqi Prime Minister went back to Baghdad, the militia group has resumed their attacks. The Pentagon spoke of that, and here at the State Department, Matthew spoke of that too. But my question is that were there any connections with the Iraqi government on that specific attacks and the resumption of the militia groups' attacks on the U.S. forces?
I'd refer you to my colleagues at the Pentagon to speak in greater detail about this. I don't have anything to offer.
No connections from State Department?
I don't have any assessment to offer from up here. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patel. Just a few and promise to make them brief. On Monday, Secretary gave detail about the human rights report. And you said you do not have double standards. Since last year and a half, you do not see 1 million Pakistani moving out of the country, journalists being put in jail, women in jail, political workers in jail.
Is there a question here?
So Pakistan was not part of the human rights violation in the yearly report. Do you guys not see any violation happening there since last 1 year?
I am sure that there is a section that includes Pakistan. But beyond that, did you attend the briefing on Monday?
Yes.
Then you probably recall both the Secretary, Matt, Ambassador Gilchrist, being pretty explicit about the fact that the Human Rights Report is not a compendium of every single human rights violation that has occurred in calendar 2023. It is picked certain specific entries. It is not supposed to be some sort of cross-cutting total list that includes every single violation. Of course, when it comes to any country in the world, including, of course, Pakistan, human rights continues to be on the agenda, and it's something that we'll continue to raise with them.
Okay, just one, sir?
Yeah,
Okay.
just one. Go ahead.
On the same topic, the Human Rights Report, the Mexican president spent 40 minutes today, early in the morning, criticizing the report. He said, among many other things, that the reporting itself, it's a breach of international law. He also said that the criticisms of his Mexican government in the report were not accurate. So what do you have to say about this? Is it unlawful under international law issuing these kind of reports? And do you give assurances of the things that you included regarding Mexico?
So, one, certainly the publication of the Human Rights Report is not a violation of international law. It's something that we have done every year that this secretary has been secretary, and for every year almost before that. I can't think of a year in which the State Department, across administrations, across secretaries, have issued human rights reports. Again, I've said in this a number of times this week, the Human Rights Report is not a United States assessment on these various anecdotes and entries that are in there. It is a compilation of entries made from credible inputs, media organizations, government organizations, civil society actors, our embassies and consulates who input these specific entries. And as it relates to the section on Mexico, I just am not going to speak to these specific entries. Your opportunity to do that was on Wednesday, or on Monday, when Ambassador Gilchrist was here. So you all should have attended to talk about some of these entries more specifically. Go ahead in the back.
So now Colombia, about the Human Rights Report, Colombia also sent a diplomatic note of protest because of the inclusion of an investigation against the son of the president, of President Petro. Colombia believes that it's unfriendly, it shouldn't be included there. And on the other hand, they protested against your statements yesterday, because they believe you gave credibility to the information of the investigation. I want to clarify exactly what were you trying to say when you said that you gave credibility, because let me be clear, some people are even saying that you said that money entered the campaign.
So I don't think that there should be no confusion as it relates to my comments. Let's just take a step back and talk about this as a matter of fact. First, the Colombian government has every is their prerogative to conduct whatever kind of diplomacy or take whatever actions that they seem fit under their government. But what we're talking about here is that in the 2023 Human Rights Report, in the Colombia section, there are references to an inquiry that was opened by the Colombian Attorney General's office. It's a matter of public record that the Attorney General's office has opened this inquiry. The State Department didn't announce it. The Human Rights Report didn't announce it. This is a matter of public record. And government organizations are one of the many credible inputs that go into compiling the Human Rights Reports. This report, one of the things it's known for is compiling credible actions that governments take. But the inclusion of any entry in the Human Rights Report does not denote any kind of fact-finding or assessment by the United States government as it relates to these specific entries. And on the case that you note yesterday, I was pretty clear yesterday, and I will be so again. I have no comments or assessment or details to offer as it relates to this specific matter that the Attorney General's office has raised. That is for them to speak to, including the details and any specifics around the inquiry that they're looking into. The United States government does not have an opinion or point of view or an assessment on what's laid out there.
Mr. Patel, just one last thing. There's a new attorney in Colombia. It was appointed by President Petro, and the course of that investigation is already changing. Does the U.S. trust that the investigation can be conducted fairly? Do you trust like the Colombian institutions on this, on the Attorney General office appointed by President Petro investigating his son?
I have no different assessment to offer when it comes to the justice system in Colombia. This is an issue for the government of Colombia and the Colombian Attorney General's office. I don't have any other perspective from the United States.
Thank you.
Abby, go ahead.
Turks and Kos.
Sure. What a pivot.
It's good, yeah, serious pivot. At least 2 Americans are currently being detained in Turks and Caicos after bringing in ammunition to the country earlier this year. Does the State Department have any concerns regarding the detention of Americans for bringing ammunition into the country. They're both looking at the potential of 12-year sentences.
So, Abby, as you know, our embassies and consulates, we have no higher priority than the safety and security of American citizens overseas. We're aware of the arrest of U.S. citizens in Turks and Caicos. When a U.S. citizen is arrested, we stand by ready to provide all appropriate consular assistance. But in a foreign country, U.S. citizens are subject to the country's laws, even if they may differ from what is law in the United States. I will note that our department put out a security alert in September of 2023 that states that in the Turks and Caicos Islands, firearms, ammunitions, and other weapons are not permitted. Turks and Caicos Island authorities strictly enforce all firearms-related laws, and the penalty for traveling to Turks and Caicos Islands with a firearm or ammunition or other weapon is a minimum of custodial sentence of 12 years. So, but beyond that, we are aware of these reports, and we are continuing to engage and provide all appropriate consular assistance.
Are you able to provide any estimate for how many Americans are being detained in Turks and Caicos?
As you know, Abby, as a veteran covering this department, the number of American citizens, not just in Turks and Caicos, but in any country, that is a number that fluctuates. We do not ask or even require American citizens to register or notify with us when they travel, when they head to any destination. So that is just not a number I can offer from up here. Go ahead.
Thank you. There have been reports that President Erdogan's meeting with the Hamas leader might have affected his anticipated White House visit. I will not ask you to confirm whether the Turkish president is coming, but I will ask you, what is your message to your allies? Will a meeting with the Hamas leader potentially set an obstacle to a White House visit?
So our message to our allies and partners today is the same that it was on October 7th, which is that it no longer can be business as usual with Hamas, and that any country who may have a relationship with Hamas, influence with Hamas, needs to send a very clear message that they should take the deal on the table that will release hostages and help bring about much needed relief to the Palestinian civilians in Gaza, and that they should ultimately ensure that every single hostage is released. But I don't have any other...
So does that mean that a meeting with the Hamas leader is business as usual, so you can influence a visit in the United States?
I have no assessments to offer on that meeting beyond that.
So could I just follow on that point?
Sure.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
So would you like to see your allies, like Qatar, for instance, throw the Hamas leadership from Qatar? Because there's been a lot of talk about this.
I spoke a little bit about this
I understand,
last
but
week,
since
Saeed,
this
and
was brought
that,
up now.
I will, again, leave it to the government of Qatar to speak to any steps or that they may be taking as it relates to their own government. Go ahead.
On the Secretary's visit to China, he said he would address human rights, but on this report that came out on Monday, will he specifically address the persecution of religious groups like the Uyghurs in Falun Gong? And what have talks been like on this in the past?
So what I can say is that in every engagement that we have had with the People's Republic of China since the onset of this administration, human rights have always been on the agenda, and they will continue to be so. And I have no doubt that human rights will be discussed this week while the Secretary is there. Go ahead.
The Secretary's trip to China comes on the heels of the state visit by the Japanese Prime Minister, the unprecedented U.S.-Philippines trilateral, and forward movement on AUKUS. And next month, the inauguration of the Taiwanese president-elect is approaching. How will these factor into discussions with Chinese officials, potentially President Xi?
So, look, broadly, the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific region continues to be a key tenet of what we will be engaging on, not just with these countries that you laid out, but also in our engagements with the PRC over the course of this week. It's important to note that there's a number of other topics that we expect to come up. We talked a little bit about them earlier this week. He's going to work, the Secretary, to accomplish three main goals. First, make progress on key U.S. priorities, including resuming counter-narcotics cooperation, continuing military-to-military communication, issues around artificial intelligence and strengthening people-to-people people ties. He'll also clearly and directly communicate concerns on regional and global issues. As I said, peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region, maintaining cross-strait ties, ensuring that tensions are kept in check. We also will discuss managing our relationship and competition responsibly with the PRC. You can expect all of these things to be talked about, and more importantly, you'll have a chance to hear from the Secretary at the end of the week when he has a press conference at the conclusion of his trip. You had your hand up in the back, did you not?
Yeah, but my question is being asked. But
Great.
just to follow up.
Relax, Alex. I will get to you.
Is the Secretary going to have his ending press conference in China or back here in the U.S.?
It will be in Beijing at the end of the week. Go ahead, Alex.
Two topics. Ukraine first. The first tranche is out today. It did not include long-range ATACMS, but there are reports that the president has already directed administration officials to send them. I think the reports actually say that it has already been delivered and is being used. Can you please confirm that and overall your reaction to the first package?
Sure, Alex. So yes, I can confirm that the United States provided Ukraine with long-range ATACMS at the president's direction. He quietly directed his national security team to send ATACMS to Ukraine for use inside Ukrainian sovereign territory in February. They started moving as part of the military aid package we announced on March 12th, and those missiles arrived in Ukraine this month. We did not announce this at the onset in order to maintain operational security for Ukraine at their request, and I'll defer to them to speak about their use and how they may or may not be operationalized in their own military operations.
Extremely helpful. Yeah. Moving forward, can you guys give us a sense of how you guys are going to determine what kind of guns, weapons do they need, to make it tangible change?
So I'm just not going to speculate on any forthcoming drawdowns or any forthcoming security systems or assets we may be providing our Ukrainian partners. Only to say, you saw us take a huge step today with the announcement of this $1 billion package. It was incredibly helpful, and our message to our Ukrainian partners is that this assistance is on the way, and that our commitment to their defense is unwavering.
Again, final one from me on Armenia, Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
There are reports about some progress has been made in terms of border delimitation. Any reaction? Are you guys involved? Is Special Advisor Bono planning to go to the region, or is he involved at all?
I don't have any travel to announce, Alex, but the Secretary mentioned this in his tweet, that we welcome the announcement that Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed upon the 1991 Alma-Ata Declaration as the basis for border delimitation between the two countries. This is an important step towards concluding a durable and dignified peace agreement. Daphne, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to ask how many long-range ATACMS?
Again, I'm not going to speak to the specifics. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.